The twin moons of Cytherea cast a soft silver light over the palace, reflecting off its crystal walls and sparkling floors. In the heart of the grand hall sat Empress Althara, barely 22, yet wise beyond her years. She ruled her people with fairness and strength. Even though she had never seen a sunrise or a star, Althara was blind, but her lack of sight never stopped her from understanding the world. She could feel the emotions of others, sense the energy in the air, and hear truths that most could not. Her people adored her, and her enemies feared her. But tonight, her heart felt something different, something she could not name. The palace was alive with whispers. A human diplomat had arrived from Earth, a world few in Cytherea had visited. Humans were rare, often underestimated, but Althara had heard stories of their courage, their determination, and their strange, resilient hearts. She had insisted on meeting this human herself. When he arrived, the hall seemed to grow quieter, as if it too was waiting. Captain Elias Hart stepped in, tall and strong, but his eyes were kind. He bowed deeply and spoke in careful Cytherean. "Your Majesty, I am honored to meet you." His voice carried a warmth and calm confidence that made the hall feel lighter. Althara's lips curved into a gentle smile. Though she could not see him, she felt the presence in the room, the rhythm of his steps, and the steady strength of his voice. "Rise, Captain Hart. You are my guest, not a subject," she said. Her tone was soft but commanding. They talked for hours, about their worlds, their struggles, and their hopes. Elias spoke of Earth's cities, its oceans, and its people's endless drive to survive. Althara shared the burdens of ruling Cytherea, of the loneliness that often came with her crown, and of her world's expectations. With each word, they drew closer, building a bond neither of them had expected. As the night deepened, Althara made a choice that startled her advisors. She invited Elias to remain in the palace for the night, a gesture unheard of in Cytherea. Guards and ministers whispered, some in fear, some in astonishment. But Althara did not care. Her heart had decided. In her private chamber, the air was warm, scented with flowers and soft light. Elias knelt at her side, but Althara gently lifted his hand and held it. She let her fingers trace his, feeling the lines, the strength, the warmth. To Althara, this touch spoke louder than any sight could. She saw him more clearly than anyone else in her life. The palace seemed to vanish. The sounds of the night, the hum of distant machines, even the soft breathing of guards outside became a distant murmur. All that existed was this moment, this human and this Empress, sharing a quiet connection beyond words. Finally she spoke, her voice trembling slightly. "Elias, there is something I must tell you. A truth I have hidden for a long time, even from myself." Elias squeezed her hand gently, sensing the weight of her words. "Whatever it is, Althara, I am here. You are not alone." She closed her eyes as she always did, and let her other senses guide her. "I am blind. Blind not only to the world's beauty, but also to what my heart truly wanted. And tonight, I have chosen you." Elias felt a shock, but also a warmth that filled him from heart to soul. He breathed deeply, holding her hand as if it were the most precious thing in the universe. "Then I accept, Althara, not for your throne, not for your title, but for you. Only you." In that instant, the universe seemed to pause. Althara felt truly seen, not through eyes but through understanding, through a recognition of her soul. Outside, the palace whispered in astonishment, but inside her chamber the impossible had happened. Two hearts had met against odds no one could believe possible. The night lingered, full of promise, but also shadow. For in the next days, whispers of scandal and danger would rise. And with them would come a shocking truth, one that would test both human and Empress and change the course of Cytherea forever. The morning after that night, the palace of Cytherea was not the same. News of the Empress inviting a human into her private chambers spread like wildfire through the crystal halls. Ministers and guards whispered behind closed doors, their voices tinged with fear, curiosity, and disbelief. A blind empress had chosen a human, something no one could have imagined. Some called it scandal, others called it daring. But Althara cared for none of it. Her heart had spoken, and she had listened. Elias walked beside her through the grand hall, careful to match his steps to hers. He could feel the tension in the air, the subtle energy of those who observed them from a distance. "Your Majesty," he said softly, "they do not understand yet. But they will see." Althara's fingers brushed against his arm, a silent comfort. "I know, Elias. They will see, or they will try to stop it. But this is my choice, my life, and I cannot live for their approval." Her voice carried the weight of someone who bore a crown, but refused to be chained by it. The court assembled for the morning council, the largest gathering of Zetheria's leaders in decades. As Althara and Elias entered, all eyes turned to them. Murmurs rippled through the room like wind through reeds. Some of the ministers stared openly, their faces twisted in shock. Others whispered, pretending not to listen but hanging on every word. Althara took her place on the throne, feeling the energy of the human beside her. Elias knelt respectfully, but Althara lifted him with a gesture of authority. "Stand," she commanded. "He is not just my guest, he is my chosen companion, and he will be treated as such." A hush fell over the council. A few senior ministers dared to speak. "Empress, a human, here, in our chambers? This is unprecedented. Is this wise?" Althara's hand rested on the arm of the throne, her fingers trembling slightly, not from fear but from the intensity of the moment. "Wise is measured by tradition, courage is measured by heart, and my heart has chosen." Elias straightened beside her, his human voice calm yet firm. "I am not here to take power. I am here to stand beside the Empress, to support her, not as a rival, but as an ally. I will honor Zetheria, its people, and its Empress, with every breath I take." Some ministers nodded reluctantly, impressed despite themselves. Others glared, unwilling to accept the change. Althara knew this was only the beginning. Their bond would be tested. The whispers in the palace hinted at more than disapproval. There were threats hiding in the shadows, waiting for the slightest misstep. Later, as the council ended, Althara walked with Elias through the palace gardens. The twin moons still hung faintly in the early morning sky, fading with the sunrise. The flowers, the soft rustle of leaves, the quiet hum of the palace. It all felt alive in a way Althara could sense more than see. "Do you ever fear what the court might do?" Elias asked, watching her closely, though he knew she could not see him. Althara smiled, a small curve of lips that held strength and softness at the same time. "Fear is natural, but it cannot rule me. I have worn the crown long enough to know when to obey fear, and when to follow the truth of my heart." Elias reached for her hand, holding it gently. "Then we will face it together. Whatever comes, you are not alone." Althara squeezed his hand, feeling the warmth, the reassurance, the unspoken promise. But deep inside, a shadow stirred. Something hidden about her past, something no one had known, was about to surface. And when it did, the bond between human and Empress would be tested like never before. That night, as Zetheria slept under the twin moons, Althara sat alone in her chamber. The walls seemed to breathe around her, carrying whispers of the past and the future. She closed her eyes, letting her other senses guide her. The secret she had kept, the truth she had hidden from the world. It was no longer safe. The time was coming when she would have to reveal it. And when she did, everything would change. Her people, her court, and even Elias, the human who had captured her heart. Days passed since the night Althara had chosen Elias, yet the palace of Zetheria remained tense. Whispers of scandal and fear clung to every corner. Some ministers argued behind closed doors, claiming that a human had no place in the court. Others watched silently, their eyes filled with suspicion. waiting for a mistake that might justify their distrust. But Althara walked through the halls with calm determination, her hand often brushing Elias's, silently showing that she was not afraid. One morning a message arrived from the High Council, an urgent summons. Althara's advisors warned her, their voices low and anxious. "Your Majesty, the Council demands an explanation. A human in your chambers is unheard of. They question your judgment." Althara folded her hands, feeling the edges of the envelope, the texture of the paper, the weight of the words. She drew a deep breath. "Then I will explain," she said, her voice steady. "Not for their approval, but for the truth to be known." Elias stayed close, his presence grounding her. "Whatever they say, Althara, remember, your courage is what brought us here. You are not alone." When they entered the council chamber, the tension was palpable. Leaders of Zetheria, men and women who had known only tradition and caution, stared at them as if daring them to falter. Murmurs rose, some sharp, some skeptical. "Empress," one council member began, "you must answer for this. A human is not Zetherian. You have broken law, custom, and precedent. How can we trust your judgment?" Althara's fingers rested on the throne's arm, steadying herself. "You can trust my judgment because it is guided by truth, not fear. Elias is not just a human. He is a partner, a companion, and someone I have chosen to trust with my life." Another minister scoffed. "But how can we know his intentions? Humans are unpredictable, untested in our ways. Can we risk Zetheria for one man?" Elias stepped forward. "I have come not to rule, not to challenge your ways, but to stand with Empress Althara. I am here because I believe in her people, and in the future we can build together. My intentions are clear, and I ask for nothing but to be judged by my actions." A silence fell over the chamber. Even those most skeptical could feel the honesty in his voice. But still doubt lingered. Althara sensed it, and she knew that words alone would not protect them. There were forces in the court that would stop at nothing to maintain the old ways. Later, in the privacy of her chambers, Althara confided in Elias. "The council is only the beginning," she said quietly. "There are those who will try to turn our people against us. They fear change, they fear—" "What I am about to reveal." Elias's hand found hers. "Whatever it is, we will face it together. You do not have to carry this alone." Althara hesitated, her mind heavy with the secret she had kept for years. She was blind, yes, but she had always known something others did not. Something that would shake Zetheria to its core if revealed. "Elias, you must promise to stay with me no matter what you learn. What I am about to tell you. It changes everything." Elias's grip tightened. "I swear, Althara, nothing will make me leave your side." That night, under the twin moons, the palace seemed to hold its breath. Althara sat on her throne, fingers brushing the crystal surface as she summoned the courage to speak. "Elias, I am not like other Zetherians. My blindness is not natural, it was chosen." Elias blinked, surprised. "Chosen? What do you mean?" Althara's voice was soft but firm. "Before I was born, my parents made a pact with forces beyond our world. I was born blind so I could sense things others could not. I can feel energy, hear the whispers of the living, touch truths invisible to sight. It was meant to protect Zetheria, but it has isolated me. And now, you are part of that truth." Elias swallowed hard, sensing the weight of her confession. I don't fully understand, but I trust you. Always." Althara felt a wave of relief and fear at once. She had shared her secret, the first step toward trust and unity. But she knew this revelation would not stay private for long. The council, the court, and the galaxy itself would soon know, and when they did, the real test would begin, for both the blind Empress and the human who had dared to love her. Outside, the palace guards whispered of unusual energies and unseen forces. Something was stirring in Zetheria, something that would challenge the very foundation of their world. And in the quiet of her chamber, Althara and Elias held hands, preparing for the storm they knew was coming. The council chamber of Zetheria was colder than usual that morning, though the twin moons still cast their soft glow through the crystal windows. Ministers gathered, their faces tense, their eyes sharp. The whispers had grown louder in the halls. The secret of Empress Althara's blindness and her pact with the forces beyond the world had begun to seep into the court. Some saw it as a gift. Others saw it as a threat. Althara entered with Elias at her side. The human's presence drew sharp glances from the council members. Some clenched their fists. Others leaned forward, eager to see how the Empress would respond. Althara did not falter. She held her head high, her fingers brushing Elias's hand, silently affirming that she was not afraid. "Your Majesty," began a senior counselor, his voice cold and measured. "We have heard rumors. We understand that a human has been granted a place of trust and intimacy in your private chambers. We must question this. How can Cytherea remain strong if its leader is distracted?" Althara's voice was calm but firm. "Distracted? No, I have never been more aware, more focused, or more certain. Elias stands beside me, not to control me, not to interfere with my rule, but to support me, to protect me, and to share in the responsibility of leadership." Another counselor leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "Support is one thing. Influence is another. This human is not Cytherean. His loyalty, his understanding of our ways cannot be guaranteed. We fear the disruption he may bring." Elias stepped forward, his voice steady. "I came to Cytherea not to disrupt, not to challenge, but to honor and respect this world and its people. My loyalty is to Empress Althara, yes, but also to Cytherea itself. Judge me by my actions. I will earn your trust, not demand it." A silence fell over the chamber. Even the strictest skeptics could feel the truth in his words. Yet beneath the silence lurked doubt like a shadow ready to pounce. Althara could sense it. She knew the council would not rest until they had tested her, tested Elias, and tested the limits of her heart to cook. In the quiet of her private chambers, Althara confided in Elias. "This council," she said, "they do not see what I see. They cannot understand the bond we share, and yet they will try to break it. They will test every decision I make, every word I speak." Elias took her hands in his warmth grounding her. "Then we face it together. Whatever comes, you will not be alone." Althara closed her eyes, feeling the truth of his words. She had trusted few in her life, yet Elias had earned that trust in a single night. But even as she felt comforted, a new worry pressed on her heart. The secret she had revealed, her blindness, her pact with forces beyond the world, was more than a personal truth. It was a power, and power could be feared as much as it could be respected. The next day, the council formally challenged her rule. They demanded a demonstration of her abilities, a proof that her blindness did not make her weak. Ministers whispered that if she failed, her decisions would be overruled and Elias would be sent away. The palace trembled with tension, the air thick with expectation. Althara prepared herself, walking to the center of the grand hall. The council watched, the guards watched, and the humans in the audience held their breath. She let her hands hover over the crystal surfaces, feeling the subtle vibrations of energy that flowed through the palace. She reached out, sensing the currents of life, the rhythm of breathing, the presence of every living thing. Elias stood beside her, steady and supportive. "You have always been more than what they see," he whispered. Althara nodded, focusing her senses. She could feel the council's skepticism, their fear, their hidden doubts. She could feel the energy of Cytherea itself, steady, strong, and alive. She let the currents guide her, let her other senses show her the truth, and when she turned to the council, her voice clear and unshakable, she spoke words that would echo through the palace. "I may be blind, but I see more than you think. I feel, I sense, I understand, and I will not allow fear to dictate our future. Cytherea will thrive, not because of sight alone, but because of heart, courage, and truth. And Elias has proven that he shares these qualities, as do I." Some counselors stiffened, but others lowered their heads, realizing that their doubts could not overpower the certainty in her voice. Althara had faced the first test, and together with Elias she had passed. Yet deep in her heart, Althara knew this was only the beginning. Shadows still lurked, whispers still stirred, and the shocking truth about her lineage, the pact her parents had made, was not yet fully revealed. When it was, everything would change, and the bond between human and Empress would face its greatest trial yet. The palace of Cytherea was unusually quiet that morning, though tension lingered in the air like a heavy fog. Word of the council's challenge had spread throughout the city, and citizens whispered in the streets, wondering what would happen next. The human Elias Hart had become a symbol. Some called him brave, others reckless, but no one could deny that the Empress had chosen him. Inside the palace, Althara sat in her private chamber, her fingers tracing the crystal edges of her throne. She felt Elias enter, his presence a steady warmth beside her. "Are you ready?" he asked softly. Althera inhaled deeply. "I have no choice now." The council's doubts, the whispers. Everything is leading to this. They will demand the truth whether I am ready or not. Elias took her hand, giving her a reassuring squeeze. "Then we face it together. Whatever comes, I will stand with you. Always." The grand hall was packed when Althera and Elias entered. Ministers and guards lined the walls, eyes sharp and wary. Even the citizens who had been allowed to attend sat on the edges of their seats holding their breath. The air felt electric, as though the entire palace was waiting for something monumental to unfold. The council leader stepped forward, his voice firm and commanding. "Your Majesty, the people demand an explanation. They have heard rumors of unusual abilities, of secret powers beyond sight. Tell us the truth. What has been hidden?" Althera's heart thumped, but she did not falter. She felt the energy in the hall, the emotions of those present, the tension that hung like a net above them all. Taking a deep breath, she spoke, her voice steady and clear. "My blindness," she said, "was not natural. Before I was born, my parents made a pact with forces beyond our world to protect Zetheria. I was born without sight so that I could sense things others cannot. I can feel the currents of life, hear truths invisible to ordinary perception, and sense the energy that flows through every being in this palace." A hush fell over the hall. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some ministers whispered to each other, fear and awe mingling in their voices. Others stared openly, unable to comprehend the magnitude of her revelation. Elias stepped forward, his voice calm and unwavering. "I have seen her power. I have felt the truth of her senses. She is not weak. She is not alone. And together we stand to protect Zetheria, not to harm it." A few ministers shifted uncomfortably. One elder whispered, This is beyond anything we imagined. If the Empress has such power, what does it mean for our people? For our future?" Althera's fingers brushed Elias's. She felt the trust, the courage, the unwavering support that had brought her this far. "This power is not a threat," she said, her voice ringing through the hall. "It is a gift. It has allowed me to see more than sight ever could, and it is a gift I share with all of Zetheria, so that we may build a future not ruled by fear, but by understanding, courage, and truth." Some ministers bowed their heads, silently acknowledging her words. Others, still doubtful, did not speak. The citizens murmured, excitement and curiosity mingling in their voices. They had never seen their Empress so vulnerable yet so commanding. She had shown them the truth of who she was, and in doing so she had captured their hearts. Elias leaned close, whispering, "You were born to do this, to lead, and I am proud to stand beside you." Althera smiled, a smile full of relief, pride, and quiet joy. For the first time, the weight of her secret did not feel suffocating. She had revealed the shocking truth, not for power, not for approval, but because it was time. And the world had seen her courage, her honesty, and the strength that lay within a blind Empress. But even as she stood there, the twin moons casting silver light across the hall, Althera knew that the real challenges were only beginning. There would be enemies who sought to exploit fear, rivals who hungered for power, and unforeseen dangers beyond Zetheria itself. Yet in that moment, with Elias at her side and her people watching, she felt something stronger than fear, a bond of trust, a bond of courage, and a bond of love that could withstand anything the galaxy would throw at them. The shocking truth had been revealed, and with it, a new era for Zetheria began, one led by a blind Empress and a human who had chosen her heart over every expectation. The days after Althera's revelation were filled with both peace and unrest. Many citizens celebrated her honesty, calling her the sightless flame of Zetheria. But in the deep corners of the galaxy, whispers spread, whispers that reached those who envied Zetheria's strength and the power of its blind Empress. Elias noticed the shift before anyone else. He could feel it in the air, in the way the guards grew restless and in the strange metallic dust that sometimes drifted down from the sky. One night, as he stood on the palace balcony, he saw flashes far beyond the clouds, ships dark and silent, moving in the void like ghosts. When he told Althera, she nodded slowly. "I have felt them," she said, her pale eyes unfocused but full of knowing. "They come from the outer colonies, the old empire that fell before my time. They seek vengeance, Elias clenched his fists. Then we prepare. I'll rally your soldiers. We'll defend this world. But Althara shook her head gently. You don't understand, Elias. This is not just a war of weapons. It's a war of belief. They will not only attack our city, they will try to break our hearts, our unity, our hope. Elias looked at her, seeing not just a queen, but a woman carrying the weight of 1,000 souls. Then let them try, he said softly, because they will find you are not alone anymore. Days later, the first attack came. The sky burned crimson as alien warships descended like serpents made of flame. Cytheria's shields flared with light, the sound of explosions echoing across the crystal plains. The people screamed, but the Empress remained calm. In her throne room, surrounded by her generals, she stood tall and graceful. Her hands hovered over the control orb, a relic that allowed her to connect to the planetary defense network. Her sightless eyes glowed faintly as her senses spread through the system, feeling every vibration, every life, every trembling heartbeat of her world. Do not panic, she commanded. Cytheria stands. We fight not for blood, but for peace. Her voice carried across the comms network, broadcasted to every home, every ship, every frightened soul. And something incredible happened. The people fought back not with hatred, but with courage. They trusted her completely. Elias led the ground defense, his armor glinting under the alien fire. His voice roared through the battlefield, rallying the soldiers. For the Empress, for Cytheria. He fought like a storm, swift, determined, unstoppable. And though the enemy forces outnumbered them, Elias's presence gave his soldiers strength. They called him the human flame, the warrior who stood beside their sightless Empress. Inside the palace, Althara felt his every movement, his every wound. Her connection to him was unlike anything she had ever felt before. Through him she saw flashes, light, chaos, bravery, pain. Suddenly a wave of darkness struck her mind. A psychic attack. The enemy had sent a mind spear to break her focus. She gasped, falling to her knees as pain surged through her head. Elias felt it too. Even across the battlefield he sensed her suffering. He turned, his heart pounding. Althara, he cried, though she could not hear him. He knew he had to reach her. Leaving command to his second, he sprinted through fire and debris, his armor scorched, his lungs burning. The palace was collapsing under bombardment, but he pushed through, breaking doors and walls until he reached her chamber. She was there, trembling, her hands clutching the air as if trying to hold on to the light. Elias, she whispered weakly. They're inside my mind. I can't hold them. He knelt beside her, taking her hands firmly. You don't have to fight alone, he said. Let me share it. Let me help. Their foreheads touched. In that instant, their minds connected completely. The psychic storm around her broke against their bond. Together they pushed the darkness away, his strength blending with her power, his love shielding her from the pain. And when the storm cleared, the enemy's psychic assault shattered like glass. Their ships faltered, their forces broke apart in confusion. The people of Cytheria saw the alien fleet retreating into the stars. Elias opened his eyes, breathing hard, and saw Althara glowing faintly with golden light. She smiled softly, whispering, We won, Elias, not because we are strong, but because we are one. He held her close, feeling her heartbeat against his chest. Outside, the skies began to clear, the stars returning brighter than ever. For that night, the galaxy saw the truth. A blind empress and her human husband had defeated an empire, not through war, but through love, unity, and unshakable courage. The battle had ended, but the scars it left behind glowed like fading embers across the crystal plains of Cytheria. Smoke drifted through the dawn air, and the once glittering towers of the capital bore marks of fire and courage. Yet amidst the ruin there was peace, a deep, silent peace that wrapped around the world like a warm blanket after a long storm. Althara stood on the balcony of her palace, the morning wind brushing against her silver hair. She could feel the hum of life returning, the heartbeat of her people, the laughter of children, the whisper of rebuilding. Her blindness did not matter anymore. She saw through the spirit of her world, and what she felt was beautiful. Behind her, Elias walked quietly, his armor scorched but his heart strong. He had not rested since the battle, choosing instead to help the wounded and rebuild what was lost. When he reached her, she turned her head slightly, smiling softly. You haven't slept, she said gently. He chuckled. Neither have you. She tilted her face toward him, her expression calm yet filled with emotion. I didn't need to. I can finally feel everything again, and it's all alive. Elias looked out over the horizon. The two suns of Cytheria were rising, painting the sky golden violet. You saved them, Althara. You saved your world. No, she whispered, shaking her head. We saved it together. He smiled, but his heart was heavy. The war had taken much from him. Friends, peace, pieces of himself. But every time he looked at her, he remembered why it had all been worth it. That evening, a ceremony was held in the Grand Hall of Light. The people of Cytheria gathered to honor their Empress and the human who had stood beside her. Songs filled the air, and golden lanterns floated toward the sky like stars being born. When Althara stepped forward to speak, silence fell. Even the wind seemed to listen. Her voice was soft, but it carried strength that touched every soul present. My people, she began, we have seen darkness. We have known fear. But today we stand unbroken. We are not bound by blood or sight or species. We are bound by trust, by love, by the belief that we are one. Her blind eyes shimmered faintly as she continued. When I first met Elias, I did not see him. I felt him. I felt his kindness, his courage, his honesty. He became my eyes when the world turned black. And now he is the light of this empire. The crowd erupted in cheers and tears. Even the hardest soldiers bowed their heads, moved by the grace of their Empress. Elias stood behind her, emotion welling in his chest. He had faced death, fire, and fear, but this moment, seeing her being loved by her people, was what truly broke him. He stepped forward and took her hand, intertwining his fingers with hers. She smiled, turning her head slightly toward him. Do you feel it, Elias? The rhythm of our world? He nodded. Yes, it feels like hope. A gentle breeze swirled around them, carrying petals of golden flowers through the hall. The citizens chanted their names, their voices echoing across the marble walls. Althara and Elias! The flame and the light! That night, as the stars rose, the two of them walked together through the royal gardens. The sky was vast and endless, the stars glittering like tears of joy. Althara stopped near the ancient fountain, where water glowed faintly with the planet's natural energy. She turned toward Elias, her voice quiet. Do you know what I see when I feel you? He smiled softly. Tell me. I see a world that is not divided by race or world or blindness. I see a future where humans and Cytherians walk together. I see peace not as a dream, but as something real. Because you showed me that even without eyes, love can see everything. Elias's throat tightened, and he whispered, and you showed me that even in darkness, there can be light. They stood there, surrounded by the glow of the fountain, their hands held tight. The stars above seemed to shimmer brighter, as if the universe itself was blessing them. From that night onward, the galaxy would remember them, the blind alien Empress and the human who loved her. Their union became a legend, a symbol of unity that reached far beyond Cytheria. Whenever people spoke of hope, they whispered their names. Whenever the blind reached out for guidance, they remembered her courage, and whenever love seemed impossible, they looked to the stars, where the flame and the light still danced together forever.